traitor!
I don't like that name.
Friend of yours?
Hi.
Hello and welcome back to A Stark Contrast, where we discuss the differences and similarities from Marvel Comics to their MCU counterparts. And we are your hosts, Geoffrey
and Dai.
Hello, and welcome back, everybody.
Hello. 2 weeks. So fast.
So fast, yet so like, oh, it's here, but also it's like, oh, it's almost the end of the year.
Yeah,
so there's a lot going
December.
on. Like, my mind has been all over the place.
Yeah. I mean, isn't it always like in some fashion? Or?
No, this one has significantly felt like more. I'm like
Yeah.
work is steady and not as crazy, but like with all like these things like family friend events coming up, baby showers, kids' birthdays, Christmas, holidays. So it's just trying to get a grip on things, and because I'm a person of just like, I just want to chill out.
Yeah.
Let me just chill out. Don't ask me all these questions.
Well, hopefully you'll get that soon, especially with industry shutting down for a couple of weeks for,
I know,
for the
yeah.
holidays. So
Yeah.
yeah, you'll get your time, and then you can just loaf, game.
I'm trying to just game all day and take a break to go eat and then go back to gaming for another 3 hours.
Of course, we're going to talk about that in a few minutes. But welcome to a special edition of the show where we'll be discussing Loki Season 2 and the Marvels exclusively.
Woo!
But before we get to all of that, I just wanted to... So I meant to do this a couple of episodes ago when I had actually seen the show, but I wanted to give a shout out to listener Marissa, who came up to me during the Into the Spider-Verse live to picture event that I went to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's was so cool.
So nice. And like, super unexpected to actually hear somebody say that they love the show.
In the wild like that,
in
too.
the wild. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was great. So thank you so much, Marissa. It was awesome. And hello. And in other news, welcome to new Patreon patron, Delessi. Thank you.
Hey.
Who shared that they and their partner truly love the show. Thank you, and Geoffrey, for creating.
Wow.
So thanks, Delessi.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Delessi.
Every
time I see a new name, I always got to go House Bunny on it, just to remember it. Delessi.
Anna Faris was why I got into Chris Pratt, because she's so amazing.
Dude, she's hilarious.
So funny. Oh
so,
my gosh.
welcome.
Yeah. Welcome. Thanks, Delessi. So yeah, well, we're gonna just roll right into like the latest news. So yeah, speaking of video games, have you completed your Spider-Man 2 replay?
Yes.
And was it just like easy breezy now that you're super maxed out?
I would just go to so I was definitely just like on the second playthrough, I was just going to town on it. I know people are gonna say like, why would you do this? But also I took advantage of fast travel.
Oh yeah.
I was like, I want to do this before I continue the main mission. Mm-hmm. So let's just friggin' get it out the way so I can get these tech parts, rare tech parts, and just level up crazy. So I was fully like powered up. All skill level tree completed, all techs, all gadgets before the final mission.
Was it easier for you, even though it was on a harder level, or was it still the same?
It was definitely easier because I had the full 200 health bar, all 3 focus health bars. Yeah. I had the skill trees where it's like, and I would choose the skills where you do something certain and the focus bar fills up, or your abilities fill up faster. Mm-hmm. So I was able to just like use all the abilities like one at a time. I hit a quick 7 to 10 move combo, and then hit Venom with the anti-venom bomb, or just like a push through. Like
it was over.
I mean, I still died. Don't get me wrong, because the damages hurt when they hit you. It hurts.
Yeah.
So, but it was fun. It was definitely easier the second time through.
Yeah.
Because I didn't level up as much as I should have. Yeah. And I was like, oh, maybe I should level up more.
I might do it. I might do it again, like, because I did play it like already maxed out.
Yeah.
But I like talking to other people about it, and even like just commentary that's bouncing back and forth because of our episode.
Yeah.
I'm like, damn, it makes me want to play it again. So I
It
might
is
do
fun to play again. I will
Yeah.
say that.
But I want to kind of go to Ultimate just because I feel like super masochistic about it.
Yeah, because I did the one below that.
Yeah.
So not spectacular. I don't know.
I keep forgetting.
Yeah, I
what it is.
forget the level. I know it's just friendly,
Superior.
something amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something and then Ultimate.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I did it on a little harder level than I did the first time around.
Yeah.
And I did feel it, and I was like, oh, but I definitely was because I was familiar with like stringing combos together and what I could do. So I was like, oh, okay, like. I'm like boom, 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 dodge.
Yeah.
Boom, 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 dodge. Jump up, boom, got bomb, boom, bop, cat. Easy.
Exactly
Easy.
right. Exactly right. That's how I play Street Fighter.
Yeah.
You just kind of get the feel of
Get the
of
combos
habits and
down, you're
stuff.
good.
Oh,
Yeah.
It's muscle memory at this point. So speaking of Spider-Man 2, I was speaking to a colleague of ours, Yasser. Shout out to Yasser,
Woo!
who is also playing it for the first time, I believe. But he played it on the PS Portal.
Oh, wow.
So I thought that was really interesting because, like you and I and probably majority of folks who have played it are playing it on their TVs and whatnot. And so I asked him, I was like, so how was it? I mean, like, that's a very visual game. That's not a game that I personally would play on a handheld.
Sure.
But, like he did mention, like at first there were a lot of bugs, at least with the portal itself, just connecting to Wi-Fi. He couldn't be too far from the Wi-Fi. Like he couldn't go into another room because it just completely like stops working.
Yeah.
But PS like fixed a lot of that stuff. So it got a little better. But yeah, he said that once they smoothed out all the bugs that they had, like it was actually pretty great, and he beat a couple of games on it already, and he might go into a third game. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. I just couldn't imagine playing that game.
Yeah, I know.
That's so wild.
I mean,
to
it
me.
did look cool, and I was like, oh, it's literally the controllers on the
Yeah.
sides and just portable.
Yeah.
So I used to have a PSP also, and I do miss that.
I've never had a handheld until Nintendo Switch. Never. And so, like, well, the only handheld game I ever had was one of those Tonka ones, or not Tonka, whatever, Toby. Where it was just like the 8-bit, but one color.
Yeah.
So it's so crazy just watching like gameplay of it, like people playing it on that. I don't know, but he says it's good. So I if anybody's gonna know the tech around it, it's gonna be Yasser. So definitely, if you're playing that version of it, give us a shout out, like let us know like what you think about it.
Yeah.
Because I'm curious. And then the last thing I have on here before we roll into the Marvel Universe stuff. So aside the WandaVision stuff, I did not watch the Agatha exclusive bonus so it's on the WandaVision DVD Blu-ray season 1.
Yeah.
The Agatha first look is floating around online.
Yeah.
Did you watch it?
Of course.
Of course you did. I didn't, but of course I didn't. Thoughts? With non-spoilery thoughts.
I mean, the witches are back.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think a picture of also.
Aubrey?
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
Cool. I haven't seen that yet. I was waiting for it, but I did not see it anywhere.
I don't follow, but I definitely get recommended on my timeline leakers because.
Well, I mean, Elizabeth Olsen is also your avatar. So they're like, ooh.
I think also like what I interact with, I'll like if, like any news that'll come out, even if it's like like Deadpool 3 is back in production, I'll like it, and then it's like, oh, you like this kind of news? Boom, leaks, and it's like, okay.
Now I'm gonna get them because we're just talking about it.
May or may not.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm just like, I guess I just like keeping up with it, but I never delve too deep on it. I'm never gonna be like, I'm gonna take it everything with a grain of salt, you know. So it's like, but it's cool to just keep up and see like what is happening.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I guess with that, we can go ahead and roll into our official reviews for this episode. So, Loki season 2.
Woo!
I mean, my goodness. So very quickly, head writer was Eric Martin, with Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead leading the directing team. And then, as Jeff just mentioned not too long ago, The Assembled has officially been released as well. So it's a good extra hour of more Loki content,
Yeah.
which is just fantastic. And so, yeah, speaking of DeLacy, they left a listener comment, Mother of Gabby, on Instagram. Reviews, please.
Wow, of course.
Yeah, let's get to that before the other comments, because the rest of the comments are kind of the end of the season. But yeah, I mean, it started out, I was going to rewatch it today, like in all truth, because I could not, because I watched the tail end repeatedly, which I usually don't. Like after the TV shows are done, I kind of leave them alone. But this is one of the rare moments where I went back and I watched half the mid-season to the end because I liked it so much. So I can't quite remember how it started, but the whole picking up from season 1 and then Loki trying to, I guess, figure out what the heck was going on, right? That was the whole. Oh, that was episode 1 where he was running around and getting distorted and
time slipping. Yes,
completely time slipping. Yeah. Oh yeah, because we had seen it. We had recorded while 1 and 2 were.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really good. I think it was definitely one of the best Marvel shows to date, if not the best.
WandaVision or Loki?
Well, in terms of just, I think, because WandaVision was the first, right?
Yeah.
The first show.
The first child.
And it set this standard of like what you can do in an MCU show, especially like with the different sitcom eras. That was like really, really unique.
Yeah.
And in terms of just growth of character, I think both are definitely on an equal level of character growth, especially where we see Wanda at the end of WandaVision. And then I know people are going to be like, well, damn, they're not gonna feel like it means that much since what happened to her in Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah.
But if we just if we ignore Multiverse of Madness, like the growth that Wanda sees at the end, on top of that, also getting especially the end for both, the suit ups that they get, like holy.
Yeah.
But I like Wanda's suit better. But I think the growth, it's the growth of just realizing like you can't save everybody, and I need to stop being like selfish. Wanda has that at the end of the show where she's like, I need to free this town, and I'm projecting my grief onto this town and holding them hostage for no reason. And then with Loki, it's like how do we save the universe?
The entire universe.
And then he's like, oh, I'm the only one powerful enough to do that. So he makes that's his glorious purpose, even though he originally wanted to be in the world with his friends. He has to make the sacrifice to save them, to give them a chance.
Yeah.
So I think the growth of both of them is pretty much almost on the same level, because they both isolate. I mean, a little more hurting on Loki's end, but he saves the universe.
Yeah.
But to choose a favorite, it's tough.
Yeah.
But I think in terms of as a whole, I think Loki has 2 seasons, so you have this growth across 2 seasons.
Yeah.
So Loki is.
But the episode count is almost the same, right? Because wasn't WandaVision longer than...
It was 8.
Was it 8?
Yeah.
I was Falcon and Winter Soldier that was shorter.
Yeah. Maybe 10.
I think it was 10.
Maybe, but I don't.
I love when we do this and we have computers right. But yeah, despite the length compensation, like they both had both of those seasons were so strong because they were tonally so different. I think that's what really makes them stand out.
I think if a show has a tone,
yeah, like I love Moonlight. I love them all. Like in all honesty, I've loved all of the shows that have come out.
They all have different tones. They all have different. Yeah.
But tonally, WandaVision and Loki are definitely next level because it does deviate from the original sort of landscape that the MCU has been built on largely, or at least has the most remnants of the first 3 phases, if you will. Yeah. In a cinematic sense of where it's like, it seems so much bigger than just an hour-long show. Not that the other ones don't, but in a different way, like in a very different way that almost feels like it's not it's not traditional MCU by any means. And so honestly, if I probably should go back and rewatch WandaVision, but if I were to have to pick one, like sheerly based on Loki season 2, I would say Loki.
Yeah.
Because
that's
like,
fair.
I loved season 1 as well, but 2 was just like holy. And then of course Key like doesn't even help. Like he's incredible in this.
Yeah.
So I think those two things put together and how they handled the He Who Remains and Kang quote unquote issues, both in and out of the story is kind of amazing because it could have crumbled.
Yeah,
honest,
it's like, well, what happens if the universe is like doesn't exist?
Exactly.
Because technically the MCU going forward is like the sacred timeline.
Right.
Am I not wrong?
Yeah.
So someone has to save the universe.
Yeah, exactly. So to kind of like they kind of turned both, to take Wanda and Loki as the examples, I guess, they both turned those characters on their heads and changed them from what we had anticipated or been taught that how they are.
Yeah.
Through their stories into something very different. But thankfully, Wanda does come around at the end of hers. I did like her evil, but then then she gets flip-flopped again in Multiverse of Madness, and we all know how that worked out. But for Loki, oh my gosh, like
just as a complete project, just fantastic. So good.
Yeah.
The character growth of everybody across the board.
Yeah.
The way it sets up the future, but still staying grounded.
Yeah.
I truly enjoyed a lot, and it's like, oh, yeah, all right,
yeah,
here it is.
And they also, because with these shows, you never know if there is going to be a continuation.
Yeah.
And I know that Loki season 1 was so wildly successful that it was kind of like a no-brainer of like, of course there is. But what if there wasn't? And they were able to, in season 2, call back to those things that we were kind of left with a wish list of. Like the big thing was like, oh my gosh, I want to see Mobius on a jet ski.
Yeah.
Like forever and a day. It was like Mobius on a jet ski, Mobius on a jet ski. And, it turned into like fan art and it turned into actual art in games and stuff,
Yeah.
And so for them to actually bring it back, but not the way that we actually probably fantasized about it. It's like, no, they gave us this, speaking of, character depth, of like actually showing each main character in their alternate lives, which is so crazy.
Yeah.
And so watching the assembled was great because the actors themselves even say how exciting it was to kind of dive into or step into another pair of shoes that was still familiar but very different.
Yeah.
For each of their characters, which I thought was really awesome, and yeah, they did make that one point. I'm sorry with the actor's name, but she had mentioned that when Sylvie shows the hunter, like, oh, this is what your previous life was like.
Yeah.
And she just simply says like, it was beautiful.
Yeah.
Or I look so happy. To then show like, oh, she ends up being a freaking doctor. Like, for children.
She helped people. Yeah.
Yeah. Helping people. And it's so great. And yeah, they did a fantastic job. And of course, Eric Martin has now been tapped to write Avengers Kang Dynasty. So guess it's a go.
Oh, he did? Yeah.
Yeah. They just mentioned that.
Michael Waldron too.
Is it Michael Waldron then?
Or
is it both?
I don't know if it's both or one for one.
Oh, interesting.
But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's, it's kind of wild. But yeah, again, like the whole Kang thing. And, we just talked about Kang in depth not too long ago. And we had so many theories going on about like how they were going to treat these variants and which variants they would even bring in. And then to our surprise, they really only focused on Victor Timely at all. And another character turned upside down, because there was almost this anticipation because in the comics, Victor Timely was not a good man. Like, all of the Kang variants had this underlining sense of like, they're all not great people.
Yeah.
And the only good one, so to speak, is Iron Lad. And so the fact that Victor Timely ended up being kind of like the purest boy
Yeah.
of them all, and he did still do a fantastic job as that character.
He did.
Well until the very last episode. It was kind of crazy, you know, and especially considering how he essentially died at the end of episode 1. You know, we're left with a spaghetti-fied.
I know I was like, oh,
he's gone.
the man who can probably solve everything is dead.
Is dead. And then but yeah, you know, we had a couple of comments regarding the ending. And so Super Fanboy Guy on Instagram, wow, didn't expect that ending in the last episode of season 2. As well as Robin Run Girl on Patreon said Loki's reward after finally evolving into his best self is to be all alone for all time. It breaks my heart. What an incredible journey. Loved the journey, hated the final destination. Which is like, I mean, that's like truly one of the most epic endings.
Yeah, I think people just wanted Loki to be happy finally.
Yeah.
But in reality...
Yeah. It doesn't.
That was probably the only choice he could.
It was the only way.
Yeah.
It was truly the only way. And it was so selfless, which is so uncharacteristic of him.
Like we go back to the character depth and growth.
Yeah.
But oh man, I was like, oh man, he's grabbing these timelines. I was like, okay. I was like, he really is like a god. You forget sometimes.
You forget because he was so grounded throughout both seasons.
And then started to be flipped to the Tree of Life.
Yes.
And I was like, oh wow, they're really keeping it. Like, I mean, I love the Norse. Like I said, I played God of War Ragnarok, so the whole Norse mythology thing is like super freaking cool to me.
Yeah.
So to see like, oh, that makes total sense. Like the Tree of Life
100%.
is like just basically branches on the timeline, and I'm like, oh my god.
Well, and that's the crazy thing, right? Because it's been right there in front of us the entire time.
Yeah.
Talking about them and calling them branches to begin with.
Yeah.
Oh my, like.
And that's also a variant of Loki, right? God of Stories.
God of Stories, yeah.
So I think that's what I was seeing on Twitter also.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was pretty epic to see that when like it was like, oh, that's a temporal loom, and then it flips, it rotates, and you're like, oh, it's a tree, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is sick. So wild. Yeah.
And another thing which is really interesting is that they teased the ending as early as the first episode, and I didn't realize it until I rewatched.
Because of the horns?
No.
Oh.
Because when they first meet Obi. If you look at the back, or is it that episode? It might be that one too, but even halfway when he meets the Obi of the alternate universe, the author, the doctor who wrote the books. Yeah. In the back of his warehouse or whatever you want to call it, there's a huge like iron looking, I don't know what it is. It's the frickin' tree. I was like, oh my God.
Oh, I got to rewatch that.
It's right there. Yeah. And so they, even when Loki picks up, you know, like the pens and he's like, oh, you know, like picking up all the people.
Yes.
They're like the branches and he puts them straight up into the cup and they like, it's a tree. There's trees everywhere. And I'm like, oh my God, it's so marvelously done. And yeah, I just loved every minute of it. But yeah, that ending, I will never get over that ending. Every time I see a GIF of the ending, anytime somebody mentions the ending, I'm like,
or when you get that close up of Loki's face and the branches covering up, you're kind of like, whoa. Yeah. Now it's incredible. He's surrounded by all these timelines.
But it's wonderful, especially because like I know I bounced this message back to you a few times that some other people had posted that Tom Hiddleston like kind of improv'd his final words to Sylvie and Mobius.
Yeah, it was in Assembled. He said that in Assembled where he was like, or I don't know if he talked to the director talked to him, like they took a break. Yeah. I think it was a lunch or whatever, and they were trying to figure out like what to say. He called to that moment in the first Thor where I think he sacrificed himself. Yeah. And he was talking to Odin, and he was like, for you, for us. So he remembered that callback and he thought, oh, I think this is the perfect thing to kind of bring it full circle.
Perfect.
And say that too. Because he's making a sacrifice. he's making that sacrifice in the first story, but then also he's making the ultimate sacrifice.
Yes.
And
Exactly.
for the final episode. So
Exactly.
it's definitely
So good.
a full circle moment, and it even has more like substance to it.
Yeah. And exactly. Because, like originally it was just for his brother or his family, not even his family, like two people of his family. And now it's like a newfound family that he has in addition to the whole entire universe upon universe upon universe. And so it was very heartfelt. And I think it was a version of the character that especially Loki like hardcore Loki fans who were and have been upset about the character development for that character since Ragnarok. Like we talked about this in our Loki episode as well as a couple of subsequent episodes after. But, there was this, once upon a time, there was a gigantic uproar. As heralded as Ragnarok seems to be, there is a massive part of the fan base that did not like anything from that film as well as Love and Thunder and anywhere else that Loki had been portrayed because he never used his powers in the way that he could. Yeah. He never has, and he's always kind of been in that specific moment he was kind of like almost like a joke prop, Yeah. Which is fair. Like I agree in a lot of ways. And so then we're transported into this Loki TV show version of the character. And we have the 2012 version of the character as well on top of that. Which is, I always sometimes forget. I'm like, oh my gosh. Yeah, so he didn't grow the same way that the original quote unquote version did. But the way he grows is so much more marvelous and like really beautiful in a way that's like, wow, he literally went from the worst version of Loki to the best version without any of the in between. Yeah. Which is kind of crazy if you think about it, right? He didn't have any of those lived experiences, but he was still able to, with the right combination of people around him, establish that he wanted to save everyone. Yeah. Which is so crazy. Yeah. So, so insane. Love it. And so, it was a very long overdue like manifestation of him growing back into God Loki status. And the director even says it in the assembled, it's he went from the lowercase g to the capital G. Yeah. God in the season finale, especially. And and even watching just the way that the performance that Tom gave, going across the bridge up to the steps. I was like, damn, I was like, wow, dude. Yeah. He got his horns. Yeah. I was like, wow. And I was watching it coming back. Oh gosh, I was watching it on my phone coming back from the Marvels. Oh wow. Because I was so afraid of spoilers that I just put it on my phone, and I wasn't completely watching it. I was like listening to it and glancing at the screen while I was like at a red light or something. And then I watched it again the next morning, and I was like, that's insane. And the way that Christine Wada even created the costume for him. Yeah. Like, I know it's not, and Tom even says in the assembled, like it's a very different version because he doesn't have the gold ensemble and the breastplate, and he's not, or like, he doesn't have these ornate detailings all over it. Now it's kind of like a humbled god, but he still looks so like, I don't know what to even call it. It was just so impressive, and the horns were next level. I know. I was like, oh my god, they're huge. I know, and there is a practical version of it, which is so wild. Yeah, it's huge. And there was an ancient art style that I didn't realize they really did incorporate in the show until it was an afterthought. But there's this sort of, I believe it's Japanese. There's Japanese art form where they treat a broken item with gold. So it's like lace, like it's put back together, but gold. And so it's like accents and stuff. Yeah. In there, yeah. And so it turns into accents. And so what they've done very beautifully with Loki is that if you look in the chamber of He Who Remains, after all is said and done, it does have that on the floor. It's all over his domain. But in the final scenes with Loki as God Loki, you see his throne is the same way. And so it's so crazy. It's like the symbolism of it. I was like, dude, this is next level. So essentially he's been put back together. He is not broken anymore, but he's never going to be the same.
Yeah.
And so he's not that pristine, son of Odin, but now he is a god of his own right. And I was like, he got the throne that he didn't quite want, but he needed. And the fact that he did it for everyone else is I just loved it.
Cherry
Absolutely
on top.
loved it. So freaking good. And I just love Owen Wilson. And I love that
He's
cast.
so good.
The cast is just marvelous. Yeah, I absolutely love them all. So me too, Robin Ron Girl. I also hated the Final Destination, but it's so interesting because it's kind of like, where does he go from here? Are we introduced? This has been a long journey for him. It's been 13, 14 years.
I mean,
already.
I feel like if...
but will we see a variant of...
I don't know.
Of him?
I mean, I say this, I'm a huge advocate for if this is what if that's the end, and
I'd be okay
cool,
with
that's fine.
Yeah.
Maybe a cameo here and there because at the end of the day, he still is running, the timelines.
Yeah. He's essentially like a watcher of a different level.
Yeah. So am I going to be surprised if I see him in Deadpool 3? Of course not.
Yeah.
Because it makes sense.
Sure.
But we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah.
We will see.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd like to see him again, but it's a very satisfying.
That's a good ending.
It's incredible.
You got to just leave it.
There's just no topping it. But yeah, I wouldn't mind a cameo here and there. Another listener comment / question from ChocoMG2112 on Patreon. With Loki season 2 completed, what do you think about the stinger with Ravonna? Boy, is she pissed. What do you think she saw? And so I know we talked about this a couple of times, but it is a very vague, so apparently this has been confirmed, it is a very vague manifestation and callback to Eliath from season 1.
So is she in that purgatory of, I forget what that place is called.
I forgot what it's called too.
It's like the end of time or type of thing or
So
right before it.
The vacuum dark cloud is basically coming for her.
But then we also saw, I think it panned over and it showed that old seal of the TVA.
Yeah.
So okay, maybe did she get sent back in time or to a future of time?
Yeah.
So we don't know.
We don't know we don't know when she is.
Yeah. So it's I don't know, maybe they do something with that, but I mean, it definitely raises eyebrows. So I guess we will see.
Yeah. Because also, as characters got pruned, they went to a place instead of being erased completely, as the original theory went. So it could be that Eliath, when it consumes people and things, maybe they get dumped somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, who knows?
Or maybe they die.
Maybe they die, or they just get dumped.
But again,
somewhere in another dimension, timeline. I don't know.
Exactly. So they've, either way you slice the show and its endings, they've left it unraveled where they need to or could, but everything is really neatly bundled up and everybody is just sent along. And it's great. I think it's great. So is there anything else you wanted to tackle before we move on to our second half?
I mean, one of the best shows out there.
Definitely.
Man. It's one of the more satisfying endings for a character.
Yeah.
I'm super happy with it.
Yeah.
It's great. I love seeing the love it's getting.
Yeah. So the rumor mill now is that, Thor 5 is going to be dark and I'm like, okay, we heard that once before with Thor Dark World, right? Trying to bring it down, and same with Love and Thunder, with Love and Thunder. But it's never quite hit the mark. Like Loki did in a season of TV. So do you think the reaction to the Loki series as a whole, as well as him not having a happy ending, quote unquote, have anything to do with what the rumblings are about Thor now?
I mean, maybe. It depends. I guess it depends who writes it, who directs it. And I mean, also at this point, you gotta give Thor his ending.
Dude, he needs it.
Like
He's
just
super overdue.
like I know
Yeah.
it's kind of impossible to kill a demigod.
And they don't have to kill him.
No, kill him. Just send him off, man.
Send him off. He needs to have a good,
Like they're
solid
good.
ending.
Like Valkyrie's there for a reason.
Exactly. Yeah, because of course, with all the Taika Waititi stuff that's spinning around, people have a lot of thoughts, and so one comment I saw flying around was very interesting in that, with the concept that it could be a darker film tonally, which I agree with. The person said like, what they need to do is find somebody who's actually going to take this character and to your point, call back to the Norse mythology of it.
Yeah.
Let's stop dabbling with all this, whatever the heck. Again, I'm not a huge fan of the Taika Waititi films. Like, I like them as films, but I think it could be so much better for Thor, especially because he too has kind of suffered he used to be this semi-serious character, and now he's just kind of like, LOL, bro jokes. Which is kind of like give him a little bit of stakes, He needs something, like it's just he's just cruising through these films, Infinity War and Endgame aside, they kind of tried to fix things there, but it's still kind of weird, but yeah, it'd be interesting to see an actual very much again Norse mythology sort of film for that character, especially because like he's never really. Yeah, aside Thor 1, which was a bit rough around the edges because it was so flat. Mm-hmm. But if they could find a nice medium where it's still funny, but not too funny, but just funny enough. And also he is insanely powerful and impressive, but also serious. Like, that'd be great. Strike a balance because, come on, of all characters.
I know.
Let's just have it already.
Just let him have it and... just end it, in my opinion.
I know, I agree. I kind of wished, I was hoping that he was going to have a great ending in Love and Thunder, but I mean, now he's a kid, so so it's kind of like, oh, what have we done here?
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens. But yeah. So that said, let's move on to The Marvels.
Woo!
Directed by Nia DaCosta and then written by Nia as well as Megan McDonnell and Alyssa Karasik. So speaking of shout outs, a shout out for this one as well. I wanted to shout out that guy. We don't know his name.
Don't know his name, but he was very engaged in conversation with us, which we were like, oh yeah, let's totally talk about it because he was on our level of like nerding out and shit and stuff. So
yeah. And so he was at the just to double back a bit, he was at the fan event at the El Capitan that we went to on preview night of the film. So yeah, thanks.
Yeah, and he asked for our pod and we gave it to him, and we hope you're listening. Thanks, man.
Thanks, man. So some quick thoughts from our listeners. Really enjoyed The Marvels. Good fun. Kamala and her family must be protected at all costs. From Choco MG2112. And then Ariel Tima. I need more Flurkins. That is all.
I agree. Who's to say that?
Yeah. Bucky agrees. If you
Rocket and Buck aren't Flurkins. And you're just hiding humans in there. Die.
I know. He's got like a couple of cosmic cubes in his tummy.
He probably has $1 million in his tummy.
Out with it, my friend. Out with it. But no, definitely agreed. I again, speaking of the shows, I loved Ms. Marvel. From first to last episode. Love the dynamic of the family. Thought her characters were great. And of course, Iman is just a standout.
She is
star.
the premier Marvel fan.
Yeah.
Like that is like every Marvel person's like dream. You love the MCU, and then now you get to act in it
and write comics about that character.
Yeah,
which is
insane. Like she gets it. She for sure gets it.
And also the fact that this is her first
movie
film ever,
and she kills it.
And she literally show.
Because I saw like the early like reviews, like non-spoiler reviews.
Yeah.
And there people were saying like Marvels is fun, is good, and Iman carries it. And I was like, I wonder what they mean, like how, like, you know, what that looks like. Yeah. And she does.
She really
does. She is like the heart of the movie. Like she really connects everything, like with how two like different, with the tension at the start between, you know, Captain Marvel and Monica, and then you have just Kamala in there, just kind of relieving tension. You're like, oh my gosh.
Can you imagine how much different that film would have been if they didn't have her in it?
Oh, I know. 100%. Yeah.
I wonder also, aside the strikes and the obvious reasons why it did not do supremely well in the box office. Imagine if they had let her, or she had been allowed to promote it like the way she is now.
Imagine if she went on her own press tour, but then also if she went on tour with all three of them.
It would have been so different.
It would have been amazing. And you have Nia go on there too.
Yeah.
It would have been a hit.
Yeah. And so it's sadly one of those things where it's like too late, too sad.
The movie's still freaking good. It's so fun.
Yeah,
the movie's so fun. I'm like,
it.
People ask me, they're like, oh, how, like, I think a couple of people have asked me, how was it? I was like, it's so fun.
Yeah.
The movie,
so many people
one of the best fight choreography scenes.
Easily.
And like, I didn't say this out loud, but in my head, I was like, it might be up there with Shang-Chi's fighting scenes.
Oh,
just the way that it was like, it was mapped and choreographed. I was like, wow.
Yeah.
I just saw that fight scene on Twitter where they fight
Darben.
Darben, where they fight her on the ship, and I was like, oh, this is a good fight. And I remember multiple times throughout when we were watching the movie where the fight scenes were going, I was like, oh my god, that was sick. I've never seen that.
They did something with the staff at one point.
And then Monica just
going through
goes phasing through, and then oh my gosh, I was like, this is the best use of power, let alone one person. There's three people that have like unique powers, and they're all used properly.
Yeah, exactly.
I loved it so much.
I agree. And like, you know, I think, you know, because Iman is kind of like rounding out the promotional period, because, you know, it is falling out of theaters already.
Yeah.
She just recently said something to the extent of, you know, the way that the MCU from this point onward is going to best exist or like thrive. She was like, we need to make people care about characters again.
100%.
Which is exactly right, because that's why so many people are like, oh, Infinity War, oh, Captain America.
The reason why those worked is because you care about all of them.
Exactly. And so those familiar faces aren't as frequent anymore. We have a new suite of familiar faces. And so, you know, it's interesting to see the dynamic of like people hating on this film, or maybe just not favoring Kamala the way that they do someone like Peter Parker. But if you put them in a room together, they're almost the same personality type. They're very uplifting. They're positive. They try to look on the bright side of things. Kamala's a touch more positive than Peter.
Yeah.
Because Peter just has bad luck.
Yeah.
But they're you know, and I think we talked about this in our Kamala Khan episode, is that their origin story is very similar as far as treatment goes in the MCU, where they're introduced as this, you know, attemptingly striving, like trying to survive high school type of character.
Yeah.
That brings this sort of balance to a very serious like counterpart, which is either Tony Stark or Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
You know? And then they have this other third who comes in and is just like, it's all right, don't worry, it's not too bad. Which I guess would be like kind of like MJ or, you know, or Monica in either case, but they're very similar. And I think, you know, the Marvels is not getting the credit it should, because it was just set up for failure by the fan base.
Yeah.
Which is really unfortunate.
And then people are like, oh, it's only an hour and 49 minutes.
But also I saw this comment. Yeah. I saw this comment on Twitter that just made me so angry that I decided then and there that if anyone said something really dumb on social media, I was going to fire back. Like I've never thought that way ever. I've just always thought like, it's fine. No, like, these are dumb. But like this guy was like, boo, another girl boss movie, pass. I was like, okay, what? Like,
Yeah.
that's your takeaway, is that it's a girl boss
not even-
thing?
no.
Like, what are you even saying?
Yeah.
So
What does it
I'm just
even
like,
mean?
What? Yeah, it's like, okay, so you don't
expand.
like superhero women that
Yeah.
that don't need guys. Like, what's the problem?
Yeah.
But if they're half naked, he would be all over it.
Uh-huh.
So it's kind of like, oh, I'm so over
Like,
this
what do you mean?
narrative. Yeah, like what does that even mean?
Like,
right?
you should just ask them to expand on things.
Yeah.
And then let them just talk
I
themselves
know.
out of it.
I thought about like,
It's dumb.
I thought about replying and being like, oh, you should probably get some fresh air from your mom's basement or something. And, like, I was gonna fire back like really
Oh, yeah.
I was gonna be real petty about it.
Yeah.
But I was like, this is so ridiculous. But sadly, that is a huge narrative of it.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
It's so
there's
weird.
3 girls. And
I
it's like,
even
oh my
say
God.
like, I don't know who I was talking about it with.
Yeah.
I was just like, I don't understand, like, whatever you see I think I said whatever you see on social media about it, it's not true.
Yeah,
It's-
100%.
It's a fun movie,
Yeah.
and it's literally just because
Yeah.
it's 3 girls, or people also just hate Brie Larson for no reason.
It's so wild.
And it's just like, okay.
Yeah. And it's funny because I did notice with the first film, when Captain Marvel was coming out, a lot of people did specifically say Brie, and now they're not mentioning anybody. They're just like pass, like
Yeah,
women. But I'm just like,
Yeah.
wow, when did this happen?
So it's weird.
Crazy.
And
to
it's just
me.
like, okay, like if you're not gonna give an opinion that's like not even like critical, like
Yeah,
there's
there's
a difference between
nothing.
critical and just saying things because you're bashful. Like, be critical.
Exactly.
If you have something bad to say,
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
productive with it. Don't
Exactly.
just like
Yeah,
whatever.
poo-poo on it just because.
Yeah.
LOL.
And it's like gross.
Yeah, it's so, and this is a full-fledged adult male too, so it's like, oh yeah, okay, dude.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
weird.
Yeah, and so it's funny because a comment that I had left maybe the first weekend that the film came out on Instagram, it's still getting likes because I went off. And it was on one of the Marvels posts, and I just said something like, just everyone needs to not listen to what people are saying on social media and just go watch the film for yourself and construct your own opinion. Like, I don't understand what happened to that, but whatever, it's cool. It is a good film. I agree. Many people agree. And I'm sure that once it makes it to digital, it's going to kill. It's going to kill. And everyone's going to go, shucks, I wish I saw this in theaters. It's like,
Dude, it's so
duh.
good. I had so much fun with it.
It was so
Gosh.
great. And speaking of character, depth and development, like, I think people also don't realize, like, this is the first time that both Kamala and adult Monica Rambeau have been on the screen,
Yeah, I
the
know.
big screen. They've
Yeah,
only had
yeah.
TV presence. So I think, because a few people asked me, like, oh, do I have to watch WandaVision and Ms. Marvel? And I said, no, because they actually frame it for you very well. If you saw the first Captain Marvel, you're fine with Monica. And then with Kamala, they very seamlessly explain it in less than 3 minutes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
she
they
takes
do
care
they
of
they
business.
literally do in the shortest Marvel movie yet.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
give like an explainer in the intro of the movie,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
you just get it.
You absolutely understand. Yeah, and so it's
come on.
again, and I think people need to stop being so dramatic about, oh, I don't want to watch like 15 movies.
You didn't
and
have to.
7 shows. That's like, you don't have to.
Didn't have to.
But yeah, it's fantastic. Had a lot of fun. I thought the music was great. I thought the actors were great. It was interesting to dive into a character like Darben, who is of like a familiar character tree.
Yeah.
Especially with Ronan from the Guardians of the Galaxy and previous Kree soldiers and such that we've encountered in all the galactic films. But yeah, she did a fantastic job, Zoe Ashton. Definitely not going to see her again, I'm sure. She's gone. But it was great. But this is kind of following the route of the High Evolutionary. Like, it's a character that we didn't need to be prefaced with in some other film or something.
She had a motivation,
Yeah.
and you saw the motivation,
And then she was done.
Yeah.
That's it. One take. Good. We don't need a long con bad guy in every film or every series of films of franchise,
Yeah.
So I thought she did a great job, and all the resolutions were tied up after a while. We did receive this comment from Nats H14 on IG. Hated the singing planet. She put in parentheses, why? Loved the use of memory in the Flurkin scene. So the first part, hated the singing planet.
I get why, because it's so random. But that's why I loved it, because it was such like
Aladna, sorry. Yeah.
It was just like so like out of the blue, you're like, oh.
Yeah.
Okay, but it's also you believe it because it's like you don't know like what kind of other planets are out there.
Right.
So like they only speak in song.
Speak in chorus. Yeah.
They only speak in song. So it's like, yeah, I believe that. Yeah. That sounds like, that's not nothing that's like out of the ordinary.
Yeah,
like I feel like there's like if you watch Rick and Morty, there's planets where like or even Drax, like where Drax is from.
Yeah.
They don't speak in metaphors.
Yeah.
They can't. They're all literal.
Yeah.
So seeing a planet that only sings, I was like, oh, this is hilarious. And I was like, oh, okay, that's funny.
Yeah.
And then they doubled back on it.
Yeah.
And they had Brie Larson do a singing bit. And I was like, oh my God.
After transforming into a prince.
You're kind of like, wait, like
Disney?
Like the audience's reaction is pretty much what Monica and Kamala responded, like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
And it's also like, if you're a fan of Brie Larson, like she's a kick butt singer, because if you watch Scott Pilgrim versus the World, she is like, it's great. Like,
and she released an album.
Yeah. She released
20.
that song that she sang on that movie.
Yeah.
And it's just like,
It's
like, why
so
not?
funny.
Just do it. Just like, is it random? Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's also like, and there was reason to be there also, and they still fit that exposition in a hour and 42-minute movie. Mm-hmm. Exactly. But I get it.
I know it could be a little jarring, and it seems a little silly because it's just how it goes, right? Yeah. But it is funny because it's not like. And maybe we'll get into this in our Monica Rambeau episode or another episode, but in all seriousness, this is canon. It was not created for the movie. There is a planet in comics called Aladna. That's
all water, mostly water.
That where they only speak in rhymes.
In rhymes.
And so there is also a Prince Jan who it's funny, he kind of has this mark on his face. It looks like the Bowie thunder.
David Bowie kind of like lightning thing.
Yeah. It's pretty funny. And so it's not so far-fetched because it's not like they designed it for the film. It was truly something that they had already baked up. And they're just like, wouldn't it be funny if we did this on screen? And they did.
Yeah, and it didn't take that much like screen time.
Yeah,
like,
thankfully not.
They came in and like they were walking and talking, and then she was just like, why are we here? She was like, you're a princess? And she was like, well, by technicality.
Yeah.
And then it's boom, into the song and dance. That's how they say hello.
I think that's what I really enjoyed most about it. Like, I also thought, I was like, oh God, why are they doing this? Because of the Disney aspect, right? Because it's like, oh, it's a Disney film now. Like, it's a full-on, like everybody's, my gosh, just
I loved how like left field it was. Like,
but that's
it's
what made
so,
it beautiful. No, that's exactly right though. That's what made it funnier.
Yeah.
Because what made it funnier is that, like, you don't expect this. You don't expect her to start singing.
I was like, what's going on?
Yeah, and then like for the prince who was portrayed by PSJ, it's kind of wild because like, and I talked to my dentist surprisingly enough about this because they're very familiar with with K-drama. And so I was like, they were like, oh, so how's PSJ in the movie? And I was like, the Korean guy? And they're like, yeah, how is he? I was like, oh, he's really good. And they're like, he's huge, like internationally huge. I was like, really? And they're like, yeah, he's like the biggest K-star there is. And I was like,
Oh, and the fact that
makes
he's
a
a
lot of
side
sense.
character
Yeah.
in just this Marvel movie.
He's in this, like with his not even 5 minute cameo total. But I mean, the fact that they pulled him into it too, and he kind of got to debut in the international market, especially in a Marvel film, speaking English and singing.
And he sang too.
Yeah,
I was like,
that
oh, that
was
makes
amazing.
sense. Like, you might as well have this Korean pop star sing.
And I think I said it to you, or I said it out loud when we were watching it in the theaters. I was like, he's so beautiful.
I think you did say it out loud.
Yeah, I was like, he's so beautiful.
I was like, damn, his skin looks clear
he
as
got
day.
good skin. He got good hair.
That man just woke up with clear skin.
I was like, damn. And then his suits were awesome. I thought they were really incredibly made. Yeah.
Yeah, and they made Captain Marvel's new suit.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is cool.
I like the new suit too. It's very slick. And so, I love like that payoff of it, and also that the fact that they just break out into fighting, and also the other two get suit upgrades as well, which is funny because Monica's like she had the like drapes on her and it's a callback to the comics, so
Love that.
it was an iteration of the photon outfit.
a good segue to get new suits.
And Kamala's like killer scarf, which is, he's like, what did he say? He's like, use your scarf. And she's like, what? Yeah, so it was, sure. I'm sure it was like a little cringy / cheesy at
little
first,
campy, but
it was super campy. But
I think it works.
I think it works. Too. Yeah, it did work, and it was it was nice.
Yeah, that's the tone of this movie. Like, supposed to be fun.
Yeah, I enjoy watching Carol cringe a bit.
Yeah,
because she is so stone faced a lot of the time. But no, I totally get it. It is great, and I thought it was
I
super
also
fun.
well, after we're done talking about that, we're done with these listener comments. I love what's that word? I always forget like the words to describe, but I love the makeup between Monica and Carol.
Oh yeah,
regarding
the reconciliation.
the reconciliation.
Yeah.
Ugh. So that was good to have, because you're kind of like, oh well.
Well, yeah, because it's they immediately plant that it's gonna be a long journey, because like in the beginning of the film, where she's just like Auntie Carol, and then Kamala's like, did you see Aunt? And then she was like, Captain Danvers.
And
She
then Kamala's
corrected
like putting like it together, like
yeah. And so you're already met with the fact that it's like a point of contention for those two characters, and Kamala's like the spectator, who is like, oh boy.
Yeah, and then when they did those memory things, I was just like, they basically explained like the whole backstory in
exactly
less than 2 minutes or whatever it was,
like 30 seconds.
Like and you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Now you see why Monica feels some sort of way towards Carol, but you also see why Carol couldn't come back yet.
Yeah.
So I love that. And Kamala's just like, I saw some coordinates.
Yeah, exactly. I loved it. Again, like she had this sort of purpose to her to kind of just like unify and really solidify the bond that all of them have in between each other and with the entirety of the group.
I also love the little hero growth moments that you may not have picked up on, but it still plays a part in the long run, where they went to that one planet where the scrolls were, and it was getting destroyed, right? And you're kind of like, oh, they need to evacuate everybody. And Kamala wants to save everybody, but she literally can't. Like, there's just no time. You can't, you just have to get as much people as you can onto the ships. And so to learn that lesson from Carol, and being like, hey, like, you can't save everybody. You save who you can. Yeah. And that was probably like,
and the tone that she delivered.
Yeah, that's probably like a very like hard hitting realization for Kamala. She's like, what? Like, what?
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean? We can't just let people die.
Yeah.
And you have to be like,
the harsh reality of it. Yeah.
This is what we do. Like, it happens.
Yeah.
It sucks, but it happens.
And there's another parallel between Kamala and Spider-Man. Is that like he thinks, I can do it. I can do it all. I can do it all. We can save them all. And it's like, no, like you can't. You can't do it, and they have to learn this from senior superpowered, like they just have to learn the hard way.
Yeah.
And she gets it twice. She gets it twice in that movie. First on the Kree, and then I think it was on Aladna.
Oh, you mean the scrolls? The scrolls first? Because they were saving the scrolls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What did I say?
Kree.
Oh, sorry.
So scroll, and then on
first,
Aladna.
And then when they were taking off, and she chose to portal them elsewhere, and she got scolded again, and it's like, oh boy, the kid she has to make some errors, or at least choices that don't go with Carol's, because how else is Carol gonna learn too?
Yeah.
Yeah, really, I love their dynamic and all that.
I loved it. It was so much fun.
Yeah,
like so much growth, character growth in more than in maybe 100-minute movie.
Exactly. And then of course, Monica too, like to the one of the lines that she has, that Tiana has in the film, where she's like, what did Carol say? She said something to her, and she was like, and I was a little girl that hung on your every word. I think that was one of the actual times, like when I saw it the second time, that was one of the parts that actually made me cry. I was like, you could really feel
that's tough, man.
It's really tough.
Because as a kid, you're like,
yeah.
Like, that's my Auntie Carol.
Right.
See you when you get back.
Exactly.
And she never comes.
Exactly. And she never comes back, like 20 years. And so I loved, I loved Tiana Paris, like as a default. Like
so
I've
good.
loved her since she's come in. Yeah. In WandaVision, speaking of, and so, yeah, it's cool to see her grow on screen even more, because when we left her in WandaVision, she had just gotten those powers at the tail end of the series, right? Yeah. And so to see them come out full-fledged, and she's also got the suit and how they tied it into Saber of all things on top of it. So she already got an upgrade in one film. Like most characters don't get that.
Yeah.
So she got an immediate upgrade between Saber and Aladna. I love her, and I can't wait to see more of her. And it was nice to also see Maria Rambeau, played by Lashana.
So good. I guess before we get to what we'll discuss, the post credits and mid credits, I thought transporting people in the Flurkins is the most genius thing I've seen in an MCU movie. I don't know why, but I was kind of just like, oh, they need to get out of there.
Right.
Like, there's not enough ships. I was like, oh no, this is another.
They're all gonna die.
Like, this is another sacrificial moment, like where you have to, And then they were just like, they just saw the cat, and they're just like, it's easier to transport a cat than it is a human. So everybody, let the Flurkins take you. And I was like, oh my God.
I love how like the PA is like, do not run.
Do not run.
Let the Flurkin take you.
Let them consume you. And I was like, and then that video, that clip of Brie, kept resurfacing on Twitter, and it was so funny where she's like, come here, kitty. And I was like, oh, it's so good.
So good.
You're literally like the most powerful superhero, and you're chasing a cat.
And then they doubled down and doubled down and doubled down by playing Barbra Streisand singing Memory from Cats. On top of that entire scene, I was dying.
That was such a fun scene. I love it so much. I was like, these people are smart.
They're so good. Like the cues. Like I will say, one of the things that I initially did not love in Captain Marvel was that I felt like the music, they were really trying to shoehorn era hits into the film.
Oh, because it was set in the 90s and everything.
In the 90s, and I was like, I get it, but it didn't quite fit.
Stick.
Yeah. Whereas this, super duper left field, but it fits so perfectly in a weird way. Like, it was so weird, but I liked it. But yeah, I thought the Flurkin thing was hilarious, and it was funny because it's like they kind of like introduce this whole oh, there's a mysterious matter on the ship. Oh, it's multiplying. What is this? I know,
and it's just Flurkin's giving birth.
Yeah,
that's hilarious.
I also love that Kamala's mom was just like, when I was gonna say Lucky, when Goose was licking herself, and Fury's like, Goose, Goose, like stop, which is basically what I do to my cats.
Like, stop that.
Stop that. Yeah. And then Kamala's mom is just like, that cat looks like, what did she say? She's like, the cat looks chubby or fat.
Like looks fat or something. Yeah. Like, are you feeling? And then Nick Fury's like, is he?
Yeah.
Huh?
And then it's just pregnant.
And it's just a bunch of flirkins everywhere.
And stealing, again, like they beautifully seeded stuff because like Goose was consuming the pillows at the house first, and then you were just thinking, oh, it's a flirkin being a flirkin, but she was actually collecting stuff to vomit out and then put her eggs on top of, which is how we're introduced to this.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's why when
that's what you caught? Is that what you caught the second time?
Yeah, when I watched it the second time, because, as a golden rule that I've said is that I do watch it twice because I go the first time for that fanfare of excitement. And then I see it again because I know the audience isn't going to be the same, but I can at least hear everything. Watch it in IMAX.
Yeah.
And so I made the beautiful mistake of getting 3D IMAX. So I was like Steve Rogers, like going into space for the first time. but in that scene where when Fury opens the door and then, he's like, Goose, what are you doing? And then the mom pops her head in and she says like, oh, it's all of my, and I think she used a word that, that wasn't English. And she said something and she goes, oh, all of my things are here. And then you see all of the trinkets from their house. And it's like, ew. And because Goose was using it to nest.
Wow.
And so that's when he picks up the little Siamese and you're
yeah. That's yes.
Yeah, so they played such a huge part, which is like amazing. I love it.
Yeah.
And I think Iman said it at the fan event. She was like, yeah, I get to work with like Samuel L. Jackson and like cats, and there are cats everywhere, and it's just like really cool.
I can't imagine that day on set where it's just you're surrounded by like a collection of cats.
Oh my god!
You're like, whoa,
that's so cute.
All right,
I love it. Yeah. So now they have what 18, 28.
Dude, there's a lot of flirkins. There's like a lot of flirkins.
Basically 30 flirkin. Yeah, it's so great. And so
yeah,
shall we?
That was like the end. But then there's the post. There's the credits. Post credit or end of the movie? It was more like end of the movie.
It was more.
Yeah, it was an end movie tag and then a mid credit scene.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the end movie tag was probably my favorite one.
Dude, the minute I saw and this is funny because I looked at Jeff and I was like, oh my god! I almost immediately knew it was her, and Jeff didn't catch on until a few seconds later.
Well, I was just like, I was like, oh, Jeremy Renner's back, baby.
No, I was like, this is Kate.
And then I was like, you're right. I was like,
but the sound that you made was exquisite. Because you were like,
did I yell? Did I like scream?
You yelled. I was like, oh.
Yeah, so the door opened, and then it was Lucky. It was Lucky that came first.
Lucky,
yeah. And then I was like, oh! I was like, ah!
And you know what is funny is because like the way that they actually framed Kamala, in the shadows, if you knew type of deal, it almost felt like it was Yelena. For a second, it felt like Yelena because all you see is like kind of wavy hair, and like you see she had her hands tucked in such a way that the bracelets almost look like wristlets. Yeah. And so I was like, are they gonna bring it? And I was like, no, this is Kamala.
Yeah, and so in walks Haley Steinfeld.
I know. Jeff was immediately yelling like, when did she film this? I need to know.
In walks Haley Steinfeld. Kate Bishop walks to her apartment door.
I love her so much.
And then Kamala Khan is just like, Kate Bishop. And I was just like, with her iPad and everything. And I was like, oh my God.
Yeah. Young Avengers, baby. Which is so funny because like, not that they buried the lead, right? Not that they buried it at all, but it has been such a weird couple of years where you just kind of forgot that the Young Avengers were gonna come together.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh yeah, how? I don't know. For me personally, I felt like you're still reeling from the movie and how it ended, right?
Yeah.
And the growth and all that stuff, and like, oh, what's gonna happen next? But also, like, you forget, like, oh right, they have to introduce something.
Yeah.
Right?
At least these like ground level heroes, like they're obviously there.
I love my ground level.
Yeah, and I love that Kamala's doing it.
Yeah.
Because it makes sense because she's been hanging out with Nick Fury so much.
Exactly.
And she has all this like exposure to like this technology. And you're like, ooh, like who, like this person. Oh yeah. I'm gonna, and it's perfect. It's even Iman because she's such a fan. Mm-hmm. So now it's even better. Like oh, now she's gathering like whoever like maybe she wants to like team up with.
Did Haley post anything?
I have not seen anything. No, she hasn't. Maybe after the movies run.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And so I'm like, yes. Yes.
It's finally coming together.
Like they're doing something.
It was such a happy surprise.
It was. It was like a breath of fresh air because 100%. It sets up something, but it's something just so simple of like there's no like stakes. It's just like like hey, like we're like we're around the same age. Yeah. What's up? Like and we're both superheroes.
She came in with no agenda.
Yeah.
She was like, yeah.
She was like, yeah. And you're like, oh. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're a superhero too.
She's so funny and she's so great. She's so great. Like like you said, presentation was great.
And then we get to the mid-credit scene, which has much more enormous value to it, like in the grand scheme of things.
See, so this is where I'll just interject that I was so taken off guard by Hawkeye that I didn't even think, I was like, oh, that's the payoff. I didn't think there was going to be another payoff.
Oh, really? You didn't know another one?
No, 100%. I was like, if they didn't do it during the movie and they didn't do it before or they didn't do it instead of Hawkeye, I was like, that's
I think I at least knew there was going to be at least a mid-credits because the Kate Bishop thing came at the end of the movie.
Yeah. And
like before the credits ran. Yeah. So I was like, they have to do at least a mid-credits. So I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay. And then, but as soon as like, when the end of the fight was happening.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, they tore a hole in space time. Mm-hmm. So someone has to do it from that side.
Yeah.
And close it up.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, something's going to happen. I was like, okay, Monica's going to close it up, but she's going to get stuck in that.
See, like even with that, I just thought,
so they have to at least pay off like what happened to Monica because you can't just be like oh she's stuck somewhere but you're like where you know and so she wakes up and she's in a whole nother dimension Earth reality
with her mother
and you're kind of and the first person you see is her and then you see her mom. You're like and I knew as soon as she said mom and she didn't react I was like ooh, this is a reality where she doesn't have a daughter. And I didn't catch this on the first on our watch because everyone was screaming.
Yeah.
And then so they have that interaction, everyone's screaming, and then you hear a voice in the background. You're like, oh yeah, binary caught you in the and you're like, what?
Yeah.
Binary?
Yeah.
Because she's wearing the suit and everything.
She's wearing the suit, yeah.
And then Beast from the Foxiverse shows up.
The second
all
one
of
too.
Kelsey Grammer's you just hear Kelsey Grammer's just deep voice and you're like, oh my god.
And his Beast is the 1992 X-Men cartoon series
CG.
version.
And I also I saw people on Twitter saying like why isn't Kelsey Grammer in the makeup and everything?
Yeah.
And it's like, first of all, Kelsey Grammer, I don't know how old Kelsey Grammer is.
Yeah.
But also, I don't think that man wants to be in makeup for 8 hours. I would assume that
easily
it would take more than 4 hours.
Yeah, because he would have to wear bodysuit, wear gloves.
And then now with the CGI version, it's like a more like accurate depiction of Beast, who's supposed to be like humongous, very broad in the shoulders,
exactly.
But he's also intellectual, and he has these glasses, and you're like,
oh my god, I loved him.
Oh yeah,
I was like wailing, and of course, my friend Crystal, who was with us at the screening, was next to me, literally hyperventilating because she was so like emotional about it.
Yeah.
Like, she and I have come from the same cut of cloth of like
growing
X-Men
up with
kids.
X-Men 90,
especially 92.
Yeah.
And so the fact that it was not only 92 Beast, but it was also
Kelsey
Kelsey
Grammer.
Grammer. And it was the Foxverse like blending in with the MCU officially.
Yeah.
Holy
Insane.
crap.
So it's like, oh, it's binary too, who's not in the MCU.
Yeah, for the record, for people who don't know, Binary, it was an alias of Carol Danvers's in the comics before she was formally Captain Marvel.
Damn.
Yeah,
What's her actor name?
Lashana.
Lashana.
Yeah.
She's played
Lynch.
3 characters in the Captain Marvel universe.
Well, in Multiverse of Madness.
And including that one.
Including that one, yeah.
So
Okay.
like she's Captain Marvel in that.
Yeah.
And then she is
Binary, and then Monica Rambeau.
and
Maria Rambeau.
Maria Rambeau.
Yeah.
Like, damn.
Yeah.
Now she's probably like, I played this many characters.
Love it.
Like,
I
when am
love
I gonna
her.
get my shine? And she does. And I feel like this is like a
She's
very
so
like
good.
a great starting point of like, yeah, I'm binary now.
I love her.
I after seeing that post credit scene,
Yeah.
I'm assuming they might make an appearance in Deadpool 3.
That seems like a likely place.
Because I've seen the leaks of the
you have.
Deadpool 3 like before it went to shutdown. I don't know if you saw that.
No.
The exterior shots.
Yeah.
Do you want to?
Oh, is it the one with the fox thing?
Yeah, the 20th
I saw
Century
that.
Fox like buried
logo. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I think they're going through so many different universes in Deadpool 3 that
Yeah.
it's imperative that you're
Yeah.
going to see so many different universes
be insane.
and how they attack it.
Yeah.
It's going to be
can't
so
wait.
good. But yeah, the fact that we got that just
Yeah.
and like I think at least for me too, when I saw Beast on screen and I was like, oh my God, that's 20th Century Fox Beast. Like, it's not an MCU
Yeah.
new character.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
like the childhood in me was like, oh my God,
Yeah.
that's crazy.
Yeah.
So I was like, wow, these worlds are blending together and they're doing it pretty seamlessly. That's a good way to
To
bring it in.
Oh my God, this is a perfect.
Yeah.
way.
You're
And
like, yeah.
I didn't even think for a second because like I remember seeing back in, like before the film had been released and before it, it started even formulating, like people were like, all right, they had a lot of X-Men pages were like same theory. We're all like, okay, if they're going to show up anywhere, the Marvels is a great place because of the obvious reasons that we've talked about many times, and that they do have a very particular link to Captain Marvel, especially. And so
They did it.
it didn't even occur to me. I was like, it could be anybody else except for Rogue or Professor X or Wolverine. Like, it didn't. It's like, duh, of course they could introduce somebody else. And of course, the perfect candidate who ended up being the perfect candidate is Hank McCoy. And because Monica is trapped there. It's so awesome.
And he mentions Charles too, which is like,
And he
oh my
mentions
God.
Charles. So which Charles do you think it is? New Charles?
I mean, you got to give Sir Patrick Stewart a call if
Dude, if they get him back for redemption, especially from Multiverse of Madness.
and it has to be one more though. Like,
Yeah.
you don't know. We don't know how many times he can.
He might just do Deadpool and he's there, but he doesn't get his neck snapped by Wanda.
Yeah.
Just bring him back in the little yellow, floaty thing, and then
Yeah.
he can be great.
Now it's like anything is possible.
Yeah.
And I think they did it in a good way to where it's not confusing.
Yeah.
Because you're like, oh yeah, Monica's trapped there. She had to close that. Now she's in a
Yeah.
different reality.
Exactly.
And like, oh, what reality is she in? Boom, she's
Yeah.
on Earth. I forget
I don't know what
I forget what it was.
Foxverse is, yeah.
But you're like, oh, she's in that Foxverse where it's Kelsey Grammer, but
Earth 10005.
yeah, and then you're like, oh, okay, cool, that's Foxverse, whatever
Yeah,
it is.
yeah.
But there's a binary in there because now they can have binary
Exactly.
because MCU.
Right.
And you're like, okay, well now Monica's also probably like, yo, what do you mean I'm in another reality?
But plot twist, what if they go a little further in introducing the X-Men in Deadpool, say, and that Carol Danvers is the one that gets absorbed by Rogue, and she's already got the powers and stuff. Proper. Not Anna Paquin style, but proper. I'll be like,
gosh, I mean, we'll see. Like, I feel like Deadpool 3 is set a standard.
yeah.
But it also has its own high standard itself.
It's a ground
because the
leveler.
first two Deadpools are pretty freaking great.
Fantastic.
So this Deadpool one, this third one, especially now that it's MCU,
Mm-hmm.
it's okay. Like like how far are you really gonna go? But while still, you know,
cannot wait.
I mean, we already know it's friggin' it's Wolvie and Deadpool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've seen some plot leaks.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, that's pretty interesting.
Interesting.
It's
I know nothing.
Yeah.
I'm so happy.
Yeah.
Just tell me one thing. Are Domino and Cable coming back?
That I don't know.
Okay.
But it's more I read mostly about
I need Cable back.
yeah, I read
Josh Brolin.
I read mostly on like the plot of and like how and like why
Oh, interesting.
Deadpool and Wolverine are working together. So
Okay. All right.
yeah.
Keeper of all the spoilers.
I just want because I read it, but I'm also like, okay, like I want to see how this is gonna get translated on screen.
Yeah. And
So
also how accurate it ends up being.
yeah. So yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah.
Marvels was really good.
Yeah. Enjoyable. So if you haven't seen it yet and you can't see it in theaters now, definitely stick around because it's going to end up on Disney Plus in probably a month or two.
Can't wait for the assembled of
And
it.
the assembled's going to be great. Yeah. So I'm ready for all of that good stuff. So that said, that's the end of the show.
Woo!
And so speaking about Marvels, fresh with with the film and all, we're gonna actually finish the year with our last proper character study for 2023. And so we're going to cover all things Monica Rambeau on the next episode.
Woo!
Definitely join us for that.
Yes.
To kind of tie up the year and the season of the show.
Yep.
But before saying goodbye, we are Groot. Salute to our new Patreon patron, Delessi. Thank you again.
Woo!
Ashley, Katie, Ed, Eve, Chris, Edgar, Sherry, Claire, Ariel, Jenny, Andrew, Joe, Liz, Laura, Robin, Tyler, Andrea, Melanie, and Nats. Follow us on social, STRKCNTRST. And if you like what you hear, please review, rate, and subscribe.
Once again, thanks for listening. We will catch y'all in the next one.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.
I know what I want. I know what kind of god I need to be. For you. For all of us.